Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for your patience. A little bit of technical difficulties, but what is new in the world of technology? Super great that everyone's joined. Thanks for coming along. Pretty excited to take you through some security value proposition, simple steps to strengthen your security with Access 4. Let's take you through. So today you've got me, so a little bit of history about me for those of you that don't know me. My name is Grace. I'm the Sales Operations Manager here at Access 4. Previously to this, I came from the managed services world, so 2012 through to 2020, I was on more your side of the fence before coming to Vendorland, and before that, I was a bookkeeper and worked in hospitality before that again, so had a pretty varied mix. I think the colour that adds to today's presentation is just, I've seen different parts of different businesses, but that's me. So I will hand over to Ronan, who is our engineering genius who's come along to support me today. So Ronan, if you want to introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, guys. I'm sorry that my camera is off. Normally it is on, but we do have technical issues with the platform. My name is Ronan Baram. I'm leading the engineering team at Access 4, and I'll help Grace to convey the message that we are the best and greatest.
Thanks, Ronan. And I've brought Ronan along today to give you a little bit of a look underneath the hood of SASBOSS and Access 4 so that you can sort of see how security is implemented across our entire stack. So where we've built our infrastructure, which is something that we don't talk about every day, and I thought you would really enjoy a little bit of insight there. So let's have a look at today's agenda. So welcome and intros, why we're here. The journey that I wanted to take you on today with this agenda is, what is toll fraud? How big is the concern? A lot of partners I hear talk about, I've never heard of it happening to me, or, what even is it? So taking you on the journey, just understanding kind of the industry, which is quite a large shadow industry around the world. The compliance considerations really is about who is here, the governing bodies that are designed to protect your end customers. They hold us to account, and they also hold resellers like you to account. But the overall message is that's a really good thing, and it brings a lot of trust into the platforms and things that we use with customers. Next, we'll go into Access 4 security foundations. So, why we're here, why Ronan's here in particular, what's under the hood, and how we adhere to different compliance standards as well. Feel free to ask lots of questions. I will get Ronan and Jing to monitor the chat as we go through. I'll go through a live demo with you, what could possibly go wrong, but we'll have a look deep into the SASBOSS platform as well. Some of it will be super familiar to you guys. Some of it will maybe be things that you weren't aware of. Fingers crossed. Then there'll be some tips and best practice, and this is all going to help strengthen your conversations with your customers. Lots of Q&A at the end, but again, if you've got anything that you want to run through, dive on in, throw the comments in the chat, and we will answer your questions as we go. So why are we here? Well, Access 4, we can build a fortress around you and your unified communications offering, but it's really up to you to shut the doors. May interest you to know, and look, perhaps, I think we're all sick of talking about 2020, but, the rise in toll fraud around the world, probably off the back of, a big shift into remote working, and, that emboldened a lot of fraudsters to sort of become more sophisticated. A lot of their attacks are simple on the outset, sophisticated on the method that they deliver it. But 38, let's round up to 39 billion lost to toll fraud worldwide. That's some pretty hefty numbers. Today you'll learn how to Access 4 simplifies compliance safeguards your customers and helps you to take a proactive approach to voice security, all without needing to be a telco expert. So, what is toll fraud? Toll fraud is rerouting of calls to premium rate or international numbers for profit. So in its most simplistic form, that's what it is. It is big business. It's not just random mischief. The goal is simple: profit. Fraudsters reroute calls to premium rate or international numbers they control, generating massive revenue on volume. It's automated, it's fast, and often part of a larger criminal network. With the global industry losing over $38 billion a year on toll fraud, it's not about if attackers try, it's when. And without the right safeguards, MSPs are left holding the risk. So let's talk about the most common ways they do this. So compromised voicemail, and this often is because voicemail can be the least secure endpoint in a call flow. Often it's 4 digits or a 6-digit PIN perhaps. People tend to use defaults like 4 zeros or a birth date, and that can be quite easily brute forced. A compromised endpoint, so perhaps someone's been traveling, they've been on an unsecured network, and someone's had access to their credentials. They've left a sticky note on a phone because stranger things have happened in the world. However that's happened, a compromised endpoint, without multi-factor authentication, perhaps can become a very weak link in the call flow as well. This is something that I've seen a lot. I would have to say probably more so this year than any other year, but new customer impersonation. So customers calling into managed service providers or CSPs pretending to be a legitimate customer, asking for a solution, putting urgency around getting that deal stood up, and that can very quickly turn into a pretty hefty bill for the provider. So due diligence, be very wary of the things that are out there. That's definitely one that I've noticed that's become more common. And in fact, we'll dive into some real life examples in a couple of slides as well. The last one is, worth noting. It's probably not the big bad boogeyman out there running a criminal enterprise, but the internal abuse of international calling happens quite a lot. So this is a common one that we see. And I would say, all the measures that we're going to show you through today will help to minimize the risk of this. So let's have a look through some real life examples of fraud just to make it a little bit more real for everyone on the call. So this particular incident actually only happened in late May, early June. So the attack started at 10 o'clock at night, and it had actually reached its toll fraud limit of $400 by 10:49. In that time, 39 calls had been made, average of about $10.20 per call. The destinations were on the high risk register, with Bosnia and Tajikistan being the main two where the calls were executed. As you can see, these types of fraud instances, they happen very late at night or very early in the morning. Left unchecked, they can go for many, many hours. So that $400 in 49 minutes could have gotten into the tens of thousands very quickly. I think we've all got some horror stories in the industry. The largest I've ever seen is probably 21,000, and that happened overnight. Not with Access 4, it was with another provider, but the point is they are very quick. They have automated dialers that are calling into these numbers, and the calls rack up very, very quickly. So toll fraud should be the last line of defense in SASBOSS. There's going to be some really great settings we're going to show you today to strengthen your SASBOSS environment for your customers and for you. But at the very minimum, out of the box, Access 4 applies a $400 toll fraud limit to all partners. So unless they consciously turned that off, that's at least what you'll be limited to. Cool. So going through the new customer scams, as I said, I've probably seen about 3 or 4 of these a month in any given month this year. So some examples of that, like I said, people call in, they pretend to be a legitimate customer. They may give you an ABN that's real, And SASBOSS, when you create a new customer, will actually verify the ABN. This is a security feature so that you can verify that this is a real customer that you're talking to. What I would say is that is just one small piece of the puzzle. There's a lot of due diligence that you should do. So have a solid onboarding program so you can validate, go through the scoping of a call flow, make sure that you've got all the details. The further you go into that process, without just spinning something up for them on the spot, the more likely you are to uncover that they're not legitimate. Strangely, we had a business calling in to partners, and we had about 3 or 4 partners with the same instance of this particular company, large insurer, calling in to set up a new site for their business. So although we can proactively communicate out to you when we come across these, it's just like phishing attacks. I would sort of think of it in the same way. Go and make sure that you've got your staff trained on what to recognise. You've got an onboarding sort of process with checks and balances along the way. You verify the ABNs and just make sure you're dealing with a real business. And if they are a real business, but they seem too good to be true, I could almost guarantee you that they are. So these attacks are quite frequent. I would say they're not uncommon. So the more you know, the more you can be armed against them. Next part of the journey is, let's talk about consumer protection. So this is what sits above Access 4 as a vendor. Everyone is beholden to these, including you guys. So let's talk about ACMA. ACMA exists to protect customers using telco services. It sets rules to ensure fair access, prevent fraud, and maintain service standards so customers can trust the systems they rely on. Next is the TIO. So the TIO steps in when things go wrong for the end customer. Things like billing disputes, service failures, or unresolved complaints. It ensures there's always an independent path to resolution, even if the provider is unresponsive. Then we've got the IP&D. So this is a database that helps emergency services locate people when they call 000. It's a safety net for customers, ensuring help gets to the right place quickly, even if they can't speak. So SASBOSS has a way of registering the addresses for your customers with the IP&D register. So we take that burden off you. Obviously, it's up to you to keep SASBOSS information up to date with your customer details. Next, we've got privacy laws. So privacy laws give customers control over their personal data, like who sees their call history or recordings. They're designed to prevent misuse and ensure transparency in how data is handled. Data sovereignty ensures customer data stays under Australia or New Zealand law, not foreign jurisdictions. And this is super familiar to all of you guys that have done hosting agreements, etc. This gives consumers peace of mind that their sensitive information is protected and governed by local standards. For those partners that are in New Zealand today, these protections still apply. They're just under slightly different agencies. The names would be the Commerce Commission, TDR, and Privacy Commissioner. So they play similar roles to ensure customers are safe, informed, and supported. So the messaging here is, telecommunications is a governed industry. There are protections in place for customers. It holds us all accountable and, does its best to make sure that they have a good experience. So let's come down a layer now into Access 4, our security foundations. And ISO 27001 is probably super familiar to a lot of you in the audience. We've had our ISO certifications for some time now. We're audited. We are actually being audited at the end of this month. But separating our infrastructure, so being a vendor, we have layers to our organisation. So obviously we have our internal information we need to keep separate. We've got partner data, we've got customer data, and then we've got, everything that happens within those environments as well. So keeping all the information separated is something that Ronan can talk to you about on the next slide. Authentication and verification wherever we can. We had some good news this week with our UC Express solution coming through with SSO. So we will continue to improve our security across our platform and the applications we offer as well. And then partner support process layers. This one is just really about verifying that when we're talking to one of your team, that we are actually talking to someone who's currently within your team and they've got the right to access the customer data that they're requesting. So SASBOSS has a verification process. Maybe some of you haven't had to go through the process yourself, but we will verify that we're talking to someone who's got an active login to SASBOSS. We've checked their permissions and we know that we're talking to the right person. Okay. Next, let's look behind the curtain. So this is where Ronan can shine. He is on the engineering team that builds our entire environment. So Ronan, I will hand over to you to give a little bit of background and insight to the audience today on how everything is built, where redundancy is important to us, and what that looks like.
Thanks, Grace. So as Grace mentioned, security is a bit more than just all fraud or one layer of protection that you put across one certain area of the business. Obviously, in the engineering, we are taking security into account with everything we build. And probably the first thing that is important to you as our partners is that everything we build, every system we build, has a full redundancy. We are running 2 data centers in Australia and now in the UK, 2 data centers in the UK. Those data centers are with different vendors. So if a vendor goes down, we still have a data center to come to. We have each of our links is redundant with different vendors again. So if a vendor goes down, links, not all links will go down at the same time. The interconnection between data centers is redundant. All our machines are redundant. Everything is redundant. Everything you can think of is redundant. All our systems are redundant between Melbourne and Sydney, and currently again in the Manchester and London, which basically gives you the confidence of the uptime, which is in many cases is part of security and making sure that the services that you're consuming are safe. On top of this, we are using our own data centers and our own hardware and our own storage. We are not utilizing public clouds for most of our services. We have bits and pieces, but they are not as important and they don't keep customer data in them. And the reason being is that we can control our data, we can control our endpoints, we can control where the data is and how it's secure and encrypted. All the data is encrypted at rest. There is no access from the outside apart from VPN. So all those hacks that you are hearing of an open S3 on AWS won't happen with us because we don't keep S3 with your customers' data. So it cannot be open. And we don't use this way. Our APIs are APIs that we are building and maintaining ourselves. We are not using off-the-shelf APIs or API platforms that, again, can be more, the surface of attack is bigger when you're using those mass infrastructures that provide APIs. We have a much smaller surface of attack that is easier to protect. But we are not taking a word for it, and we can count on ourselves to be, as I said, the greatest. We are the greatest and best, but we can take this into account as for granted. So as part of ISO and as part of our ongoing security audit that we do to ourselves, we also employ external companies to do pen testing and security audit. So completely outside, unrelated to us, and they are coming back with their results so we can improve our security posture. So that's mainly for the infrastructure and our services. Grace will walk you through the more specific things inside SASBOSS that help you protect your clients. But as Grace said, she's going to show the door and what you need to, or how to close the door. Obviously, we also have the walls and the ceiling that the engineering team in Access4 are working really, really hard to make sure won't fall over.
Job, and Stan is very, very proud of your uptime for the platform. I think we should all be very proud of you guys. You work tirelessly behind the scenes, and occasionally we pull you out to put you in a webinar, but we largely forget you're there because the platform is quite stable. So thanks for that, Ronan. I think the overall theme is that we take it very seriously. We don't just pat ourselves on the back and say we're the greatest. We do make sure that we are externally audited and externally tested, and a lot of the things that are probably very at the heart of what managed service providers do, that's at the heart of what we do as well. Cool. So we're going down the layers. Let's look at SASBOSS in focus next. So how you're in control of security. These are some of the ways that you can control security inside of SASBOSS. I'll go through each of these in a live demo, which I'll need to stop sharing the screen and share a different one. But toll fraud protection and international barring at the very minimum, that's where we should start. So I'll take you through that shortly. Outbound calling profiles, whether that's on, depending on the core UC option you've chosen. If you're Broadworks, it will be group or service outbound calling profiles. If it's UC Express, it would be service outbound calling profiles at this stage. But let's dive in and have a look at those. User permissions, access controls, making sure that your people have the right level of access inside the platform without giving them any extra. ABN verification that we talked about, making sure you're dealing with a real customer with a real active ABN, first port of call when we create new customers. Verification checks for support calls. I'll show you what that looks like for your team. And then we log in with MFA. I'll show you in the profile where those settings live. You can't have a login to SASBOSS as a reseller without MFA. So that's something that we enforce. And then SASBOSS changes the manufacturer default password. So that might not be something that you are aware of, but when we bring in MAC addresses to SASBOSS, it will override the default manufacturer passwords that live on the internet for everyone to see. Now, this is just the first port of call. It's definitely advised that you then go and change any passwords, even our default passwords. They are documented. Admittedly, our documentation lives inside of our little bubble, but there's nothing to say that, that documentation can't be shared by people doing the wrong thing. So I would say, go in, change the hardware's default passwords, even that we set is a good thing for you to do as well. And then the last thing I'm going to show you in SASBOSS is customer portals, because empowering your customers to monitor their call volumes themselves takes the burden off you to some extent, where you've done all the checks and balances, you've got all the settings in place, but they want to have live access to the information that gives them peace of mind. We can do that too. So we will do this demo in 2 parts. Let me share this. Bring up the right screen. Okay, here we go. Let me know. Give that a second to come through. Run and let me know if that is not visible.
No, all good. It's there.
Very good. Cool. All right, well, let's jump into the demo environment. Okay, so let's dive into where security all starts for you. And when you're setting up, a lot of you will have SASBOSS environments that are a little bit older, but this is where because SASBOSS is hierarchical, it starts at the reseller level. That's where all your global security settings live, and then they will apply to every customer unless you've select custom rather than default settings for an individual customer. Then it goes through down to the group layer and the service layer as well. But let's start here. So default customer settings. Toll fraud settings, nice and easy to find. You'll see in the demo environment, we've changed it from $400 to $200. You can monitor daily if you want. Probably only advised to do that if you've got a quite high call volume set of customers. Generally speaking, monthly is perfectly fine. Limit of $200, we're going to apply it to international calls only. I won't say that toll fraud can't happen on local, national and mobile numbers, but the higher risk, it really lives with the international calls. The important step is to suspend when the limit is reached, and I can't stress this enough. This is so important. When toll fraud happens, the example that I gave you earlier had 39 individual calls, but that is not always the case. Sometimes a call is uninterrupted for a really long period of time. So what we want to do when this hits $200 is we actually want SASBOSS to shut off that outbound call or calls. So to do that, let's leave this on. If we take it off, it will be really clear with you, proceed it with your own caution, because this is something we strongly don't recommend that you do. It can be quite a lengthy process upstream with upstream carriers around proving toll fraud and, around crediting or getting them to credit for it. It's just something that's best avoided in my experience. So suspend when limit reached. I can't see of any reasons why you would turn that off. Go and check your settings ASAP. You can actually have SASBOSS send out these notifications to your customers so that they are informed. Would never send them as us, we would send them. So your account, the email address that's sending those out. Cool. You can do the same for SMS. So that will allow you to limit the instances of toll fraud there as well. So that's your, if everything else fails, my toll fraud is in place, and that's going to at least minimize the impact of what's happening. Next, we're going to go into international toll barring. So I've had to play around with these. By default, they won't be blocked, but I'll show you the different prefixes. So there's 3 different categories: high-risk prefixes, commonly called prefixes, and other prefixes. So high-risk countries around the world. If you have a look through here and you're like, yeah, you know what, actually my customers pretty much will never ever call these areas, then it's nice and easy. You can just block all of those, or you can do a custom if you wish. Commonly called prefixes, again, you will know your customers better than we do, but if you have a look through and you just go, look, actually, they're only dealing with the top 5, pick out Japan, New Zealand, Canada, UK, the US, and you block all the rest, or they might be having, calls to the Philippines or South Africa. Whatever you wish, your customers, be conservative is my advice to you. Turn off anything that you don't think that they will need. And same goes for other prefixes. Just because they're not high risk or commonly called, they're kind of in that middle ground. Go through and make sure that you turn off anything that your customers don't need. I think you'll find customers are pretty vocal when they do legitimately need to call regions, which we can customize these settings at the customer level anyway. So those are your first 2 big main ways of minimizing the impact of toll fraud. The next step is layered down, so into the next level of hierarchy. I don't think that's going to share, so let's click into customers. And we'll go into one that I prepared earlier. You will see here that inside of this menu, we've got security, so international call barring. Let's say I want to use custom settings for this one. For example, I unblocked Austria. you can fully customize that at the customer level. And the same goes for toll fraud. So I had a customer once that a partner was dealing with, and they actually called over to Germany quite a lot. They wanted a $1,000 limit per month, still international calls, and suspend when limit was reached. So you can play around with that as well. Let's step down into the group layer of SASBOSS. So again, this is UC Excel. UC Express would be at the service level, but outbound calling profiles are going to limit again. So even we've got those two protections in place, we know that if international calls get through, toll fraud is going to limit it to a certain dollar amount. The international toll barring is going to limit the regions around the world that can be called outbound. And then we're going to lock down the outbound calling profile. So unless a service has custom settings, it's going to put one of these outbound calling profiles against it. Most common that I see is block international and 1-900 premium calls. So when you guys are onboarding customers, you can ask, do you call internationally? If so, is there any specific people in your company that you would like to authorize to do that? And then you can help them with these calling profiles. Again, UC Express would be at the service level, but the windows would look very similar. Okay, let's go back to the Manage Customer screen quickly. I'm not sure that anyone pays a great deal of attention to the ABN verification, but the purpose for it is to make sure that this is a legitimate business. And Grace's test WebEx environment uses the access for ABN. So yes, it's active. It gives some details around it. Okay, it looks legitimate. Let's continue. So make sure your team is paying attention to this space when they're creating customers as well. Next, we'll have a look at my profile. So probably not a space that people come into all the time, but should be pretty familiar to a few of you. I'm not going to change my password today. I'm going to probably put myself into the contact groups for, provisioning perhaps, or the accounts for those toll fraud notifications. So again, make sure that your users are updating their contact groups if they need to be across these types of notifications. And if you want any more detail about what those notifications look like, chat to your PGMs. Your account managers will be able to walk you through that process. You can see two-factor is enabled. We enforce that at the reseller level across SASBOSS. So I am using the Authenticator app. I find that easier, but you can do SMS as well. Cool. All right. Last thing for the reseller level of SASBOSS is user verification. So when your team calls in, assuming all of your logins are kept nice and clean and up to date, our team will verify their contact information. So making sure that they have the right level of permissions and they are an active, credible user on your reseller account. So lastly, in SASBOSS part of the demo is I want to show you the customer portal. So I will log out of here. And log in as my test user. And you'll see SASBOSS for a customer looks and feels very different. You can actually rebrand this portal as well under the reseller branding. But this area just puts the empowerment back in the hands of your customers to be able to see how many calls. So yesterday I called one of our New Zealand staff members, Zara, who should be familiar to a few of you. So it'll break down, how many calls. I can see this account set up for retail billing, so it'll show me what it's cost me. New Zealand calls, just for everyone on the call, are charged at standard national rates. So we treat them like a state of Australia, and I'm sure they love that. But it is a little bit cheaper than international rates. That being said, your customers, you could give them read-only access so that they can't make any changes to their solution, but they can come in here and they can see their own invoices if you're doing that. But more importantly, they can monitor their own call usage patterns across the month, etc. And that takes some of the onus off you. Also is great for transparency as well. And I think it strengthens the voice conversations you can have with the customers. All right, that is it for the demo. Let's go back to my magical slide deck. Here we go. Okay, worked the first time, Jing. You'd be so proud of me. All right, so obviously that's SASBOSS as a whole, and that's how we approach security, but there are some things that are outside of our control and good things for you guys to be aware of. So firewall configuration, how you set up, entry points into the network, super important. There is actually, scams where they are looking for specific types of ports. They're constantly scanning worldwide for open ports. So there's some firewall configuration guides that we've linked at the end of the session for you to think about. Secure your network, super important. Of course, you could separate VLANs too, as if you wanted to, keep voice on a separate network. You could do application filtering as well as DNS filtering too, my text tell me. Obviously, endpoint password quality, it's all really simple stuff, but in the world of security, often it is. The hygiene around fraudsters impersonating customers, just, take that away and have a think about, given how common it is, to be perfectly honest with you, I would say, be on the lookout for that. It's probably as common as the phishing attacks that you guys see in your world. Think about how you share credentials. So, is it behind a one-time password link, or are you sharing it separately? How SASBOSS shares passwords when you create endpoints is via an email, yes, but it's got a zip file with those credentials, and then it will send an SMS token for you to unlock that zip file. So, try and be as secure as that in the methods that you share your credentials, your customers' credentials. Make sure your staff are, regularly following best practice as well. And then, like I mentioned in the demo, change the passwords on the hardware. Just because we do it once for you, just as a protection, our partner base is getting quite large as well. So, if it's documented and it's on the internet, perhaps you should change it and make sure that your documentation is updated. Next, some best practices. So some of those will overlap. Don't send, both the username and password over the same communication channel. Clean up your SASBOSS login list for staff and customers so that we don't verify a disgruntled staff member that's left your business, that's, looking at sensitive data of your customers, i.e. they've left and gone to another business and are wanting to quote your customers, and to take a look at what the customer has built out. That is probably the most likely. And, it's not the sole reason that we have verification in place, but I would highly recommend, if it's been a long time since you've looked at your login list for resellers or your customers, go and clean that up ASAP. The contact groups. So again, making sure, if it's toll fraud related, if it's billing related, if it's all those sorts of things, I'm, as a login to SASBOSS, even if I'm a customer login, I have the right contact group, so I'm getting the right communication. Do your SASBOSS toll fraud monitoring policy, super important. Use outbound calling profiles, whether that's at the group level or the service level. Minimize the internal abuse. Review the SASBOSS international toll barring settings, block locations that aren't needed. Use SASBOSS generated or complex passwords via a password manager, whatever your flavor or method. you know, really educate and encourage your customers to use good quality passwords. The utilization of MFA or SSO wherever possible is a great help as well. And then lastly, verify ABNs for new customers in SASBOSS. So the theme of today obviously is when you look at every layer of security and compliance and protecting customers and those sorts of things, I think this is very, very much at the heart of what all the MSPs that I speak to is important to them, CSPs as well. All of our partners, you know, have their customers front of mind, genuinely care about what their experience is and the quality of their service. The security overlay of your value proposition and our value proposition is just that peace of mind. You know, we also care about them just as much as you do. So that's very much at the heart of what we do. Hopefully that helps you have those conversations with your customers. Lastly, I'll leave you with some thoughts, and this is something that our account managers can dive more in detail with you. The session wasn't largely about compliance, but we can talk a little bit more about that one-on-one. IP&D registrations, again, make sure that you maintain your records inside of SASBOSS. Very, very important, because those are API'd and sent automatically once a month. The core network and security within our framework and our infrastructure, we take very seriously. Providing you with security settings to empower you and protect you is important to us as well. Upstream from you, fraud detection and escalation is also, there's some settings built at our layer to monitor that. And then, of course, we're here to support and enable you. What's up to you is maintain the security in SASBOSS TIO complaint escalation. So there is some information you should provide to your customers to make sure that they've got that pathway and it's clear to them. Maintain your network and endpoint security and keep reseller and customer logins in SASBOSS nice and clean so that, you know, the wrong people can't do the wrong things. Some resources will be coming out to you, so hopefully you didn't have to take too many notes today, but you'll be able to go through all those settings that we've shared with you. We'll be sending out the resource pack tomorrow at this stage. But other than that, I will hand over with 10 minutes left in the session to the very bright and talented Ronan. Anyone have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat.
Thanks, Grace. Awesome. So we've got one question that I believe Dan asked the question about basically a friend that his system was taken over by someone, and $8,000 later, Telstra came up with the block. So then, as you could see, Grace showed the limit on expense. We are running a constant fraud detection system or engine that measure how much your spend is at any given time. And as soon as we recognize that this threshold has been crossed, we are terminating all the calls to this service and suspend the service and the client. So there will be no more calls available on this, and there will be no shock or bill shock.
Yeah.
So that's the way we do it, and there is no way to release the suspension unless you are actively going there and saying, okay, I'm willing to accept more usage. So it's not like some kind of a time limit and the scammers just need to wait to be able to keep on hammering and get more money. They won't be able to do it unless you do it. And obviously, when it happens, we are on your side helping you understand how it happened. We are mitigating the risk and fixing whatever problem happened. Most of the time, it will be changing passwords or closing services or resetting password or resetting a firewall to better protect, and then we release the client. So this is a very effective, as Grace said, it's the last line of protection, but it's an active line that we keep on doing. And this works for you 24/7 when you guys are sleeping, when your clients are sleeping. So
Yeah, and just on that point, I think to give the scope of how common this probably is, I guess we've got a unique perspective of having, seeing under the hood, I guess, of a lot more customers than you guys would. But I probably across the platform in a week have 8 to 10 toll fraud limits exceeded. I think that would be, and for various reasons, people have made legitimate calls overseas, an internal user has done the wrong thing, or it's an instance of toll fraud. I would say reasonably common. So definitely the main thing that you should go and check.
But by the way, many times it's not a scam. It's the cleaner that decided to call back home, and well, they saw a phone. It was working, so why not? It's there for a reason, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a very common one. Not even malicious. They just don't think. They just it's there and it's possible. It's probably doesn't cost anything.
Exactly. I think too, the main takeaway I'm hopeful that you'll take from today is that, a lot of this is done behind the scenes and without a huge amount of effort from you as a partner. I think we understand that we are the voice nerds. It's what we do. It's what we love, but it may be not a core part of a lot of your businesses. So trying to take the guesswork out of it and make it very simple and very easy to do, make it multi-tenanted so it's easy to manage. That's really important to us, because unified communications should be a relatively straightforward and easy product to talk about and sell. The securing of it is, something we like to do the heavy lifting of. So excellent.
Just
All right.
one,
Well,
just one thing. I would say, Grace team, they are nerds. We don't. We are not nerds. We are anything but nerds. In the
geniuses. I can call your team that. I'm just a humble salesperson. But thank you very much, Ronan. Really appreciate you jumping on today. I hope everyone had some great insights taken away, and look forward to sending out all the resources for you. Thanks
Grace,
to each and every attendee for joining.
before you close the call, then ask another question regarding the ability to bridge through a voicemail. It's not easy anymore to hack through a voicemail. However, if there is, let's assume there is some unknown exploit that can be used, it won't make a difference, because our system look at spending, real spending, and that's all we care. So never mind what way the extension or the system has been compromised. If the spending is hitting the limit, this all customer is being suspended. So anything that can be somehow hacked cannot be used anymore. It's kind of like completely.
Yeah, so from that perspective, we will minimize the risk. I think from the endpoint perspective, yes, there's still, handsets that are programmed that way on WebEx. There's still physical PABX systems out in the world. With soft phone PBX systems like cloud PBXs that I see more often, it's more often that the credentials have been compromised. But there are still lots of services out there with, SIP handsets in the wild with pins for voicemail and those sorts of things. So given it is a bit of a weaker part of the call flow, once it is breached. And when you see the calls coming from the call detail records in those instances of toll fraud that we looked at today, it'll be very clear where those calls were originating from. So it will be very clear that it was that voicemail that was compromised and it's forwarding out. So although less common, it does definitely happen.
Yeah, it's probably worth mentioning that SIP as a protocol is pretty old and by default not encrypted. So if you are in a hotel and you're using a SIP phone that is not one of the newer clients, if you are looking at UC Express and its client. This is completely encrypted. Teams, WebEx, all those are completely encrypted. And so even if you are connected to a unsecure hotel or cafe, and someone is spoofing or trying to spoof your details, they won't be able to because of the encryption. However, if you're using some old SIP client because that's how you've been set up and it is using plain simple SIP, then all those credentials are sent without encryption, and that's a
Which is a
very easy.
great reason why, for those that are still looking after customers that have physical PABXs and, with the older forms of technology, it's a great time to get them into something more modern.
Okay,
Yeah.
so a couple of other questions. If a login was compromised, can we track? Yes, definitely. We have all the IPs of where logins came from, so we can track it. APIs are protected by geo IP protection. So the APIs for SASBOSS cannot be accessed outside of Australia unless it's explicitly allowed, and most are not. So that's not a problem. Is SSO with any closer to SAT? Yes, we are looking at enable SSO with Microsoft 365. Stay tuned. That's the only thing I can say at the moment.
Yeah, very keen to get SSO. It is definitely something that's top of our minds. So I'll go back to the head of product and see where it's up to. But yeah, like you said, with SSO coming out on UC Express, the product team's working really hard to get those additional security features into those applications. Alrighty, guys. Well, we have hit time, but appreciate all the questions. That was really great, and love spending some time with the technical genius that you are, Ronan. Appreciate your support on the call today.
Thanks, Grace. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.